Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Story Hour once again. I'm your host, Daniel Marcus. My unparalleled co-host is Laura Blackwell, and I hope that you're all healthy and safe and taking care of yourselves and your loved ones, regardless of the kind of ambiguous status of the pandemic. You know, we started Story Hour almost 2 years ago exactly, really in the frenzy of the first lockdowns. My intention, this is before Laura joined me in co-hosting, my intention, really, I just wanted a place where my friends and I could share our writing with each other and build some community in kind of a weird and scary time. And since then, it has just really surpassed the modest expectations that I had for it. We've had probably well over 150 authors come through here, and it's just been a real blessing, real gift for me, and I know for my co-host as well, and hopefully for you folks out there. So the idea is really simple. We use a very ancient and time-honored form of entertainment, which is a couple of people sitting around the fire and telling lies to each other. So every week we do exactly that. We have two authors, about 30 minutes each, a little bit less, and sharing their work. Tonight we're really happy to have Elad Haber and Shari Paul, and welcome to you both. Each week we also ask our guests to suggest a worthy cause, which we'll shill on their behalf. So if you're fortunate enough to be able to help financially with these causes, great. If not, that's fine too. Just be aware and share that awareness if you're so inclined. So Shari is reading tonight for the Coalition Against Domestic Violence in Trinidad and Tobago. That's https coalitionagainstdomesticviolence.org. The Trinidad and Tobago Coalition Against Domestic Violence is committed to ensuring that children, women, and men in Trinidad and Tobago live in an environment free from physical, emotional, sexual, and psychological violence. So check it out. Have a look at the website. It's a great cause. Elad is reading tonight for the Greater Miami Jewish Federation. That's jewishmiami.org. For more than 80 years, the Greater Miami Jewish Federation has been a unifying force for Jewish community building and philanthropy. They work to enrich the quality of Jewish life in Miami-Dade by bringing comfort and hope to the vulnerable, and by investing in programs that build Jewish knowledge, identity, and peoplehood. So let's get started, shall we? Shari Paul is a speculative fiction writer from Trinidad and Tobago. A clerk by day, Shari writes adventures in strange new worlds by night. Shari is published in Fia, The Dark, and Clark's World, with reprints in Podcastle and Il Buio. She has a BA in literatures in English from the University of the West Indies. She received a creative writing prize at the university in 2009, and she is currently under examination for an MFA in creative writing for fiction. So Shari, welcome, and please take it away.
Hi, thank you for having me. Tonight I'll be reading No Late for School, which was published in Fire in April 2019 for their issue 10, The Team is Here. Trigger warnings, really, texturism, colorism, and maybe some coarse language because, well, relationship issues. So, well, I hope you'll enjoy this little story. Right. No Late for School. White background with repeating image of blue line sewing patterns. Header illustration of half a woman's head with hair in a large afro, hot pink and purple blush along her dark brown cheeks, bright yellow, orange, and purple flowers stuck in her hair. Delilah on the loose. Sewing bold and bougie modern Trini girl realness. Saturday, January 5th, one for the birds. Tags, Bay, all men are dogs, evil exes, some women are crazy, natural hair journey, obia, superstition, listen to your mothers. This is one for the birds, folks. Image 001, blurry selfie photograph of a small metallic navy feather among strands of short, tightly coiled black hair. You all see this shit? Image 002, zoomed in selfie photograph of metallic navy feather growing out of scalp, hair parted by fingers. Yes, that is a real feather growing out of my scalp. No, I did not fall asleep on a craft project, which was my first thought. More on that later. I'm also not part bird as far as I know, though there are birds involved. Trust me, whatever explanation you're coming up with for this, it's not it. If any of you guessed obia though, well, now is a good time to get out your blue and bush and jumbie beads. To tell you the story right, I have to tell you guys about my boyfriend. You guys remember Bay, right? Samson, not his real name, of course, and I were together for the past 7 months. We met when I went out for the first time with friends after cutting off all of that relaxed hair. And let me tell you what a confidence booster it was to have such a tall, hot drink of dark chocolate look my way. He was everything that I wanted in a guy. Gym body with an actual gym habit, nice clothes, smell good. He had a car and a good job and was active in his church. No pets, not even a bird. Ha! But he couldn't with his job. At any other time, I think I would have had my antenna up looking for trouble. But I had just broken up with that cheater, Mr. Okay. And with the hair and everything, I just chose to ignore shit. Mistake number one. Things started out fine. We had a few nice dates, fine dining in the city, sailing around the islands with friends, romantic weekend in Tobago. My father liked his job and the neighborhood that he rented in. My mother told me outright that I was probably not going to find a better man, especially after he brought her flowers for dinner and helped with cleanup after. She had also said that a man so wonderful could not possibly be single at his age unless something was wrong. This woman and her goat milk. Anyway, you all know that I am proudly #independent. Samson had that oil money, but I was not about to ask him to take care of my expenses. I was rocking the pixie cut look, so I didn't need his money for bundles. I have a friend who does my nails for cheap, and I do my own spa at home. I make my own clothes, so the only thing I've bought for the past few years is shoes and accessories. Also, I'm still living in my parents' house, so as long as I pay a few bills and contribute to the groceries, I can stay as long as I like. My sister's old bedroom is my sewing room. But here comes Samson when he gets off work. Babe, you need anything for your hair? Babe, you like that $1,100 dress? Babe, I saw you watching this makeup place when we were in the mall. You need anything for your face? I'm not about to say no to getting things, but like, respect that I'm making my own paper, dude. Chill. And when I told him this, he was like, oh, but you know I can't have my baby looking like I can't take care of her. I had to remind him that I was doing just fine before I met him. He said that these were just gifts and we almost got into a fight over it. Not worth it though, so I let it go. Ignoring that was mistake number 2. I think I must have told him at some point about wanting to make costumes for a band. I have friends who I play mass with every year, and every year we always talk about me getting a contract to sew costumes. Some bands nowadays just assemble the pre-made costumes or import them completed. Very little sewing needed, but I have done adjustments to enough costumes over the years to know that they could do with the help. So one day, Samson and I go out for doubles, and he tells me that he has this friend who is launching her own band and needs people to help make costumes. Who would not be interested, right? I told him that I could definitely make costumes, and he just laughed and said, that's why I told her about you, and she asked to meet. After we're done here, let's swing by her place. It's in St. James. She, yes, I know, but I don't mind my boyfriend having female friends as long as they don't ask me about my male ones. Turns out to be one of those red girls from the West, down to the Convent accent and soft curly hair. Becky with the good hair, also not her name, looks serious enough. Her mass camp was one of those old colonial houses with a sign out front advertising the band Limers and their presentation, Pimlantus, goddess of the hummingbird. If it's one thing our elders like to quarrel about, it's that carnival nowadays is all about the beads and feathers. There were 10 pairs of costumes when we walked into the mass camp, and all of them were covered in feathers. I guess it was on team, as half of the costumes were the pretty mask that you see on all the carnival brochures, and the other half were Juve style and feather-free, brown and black, to represent the villagers sinking into the pitch lake. I'm going to back up here to tell you the story. So remember the Library Pitch Lake tour I posted a few months back? Of course you do. Bay was in it. We went with a group and swam in the pools, the rain formed in the pitch. A quick recap of the legend. A long time before Columbus, there was an Amerindian village at the site of the pitch lake. The villagers like to decorate themselves in the feathers of the hummingbird, and Trinidad had enough of them that the people literally called it the land of the hummingbird. Anyway, these people also worshipped the goddess Pimlantas in the legends, to whom the hummingbirds were sacred and precious. When she saw what the villagers had done, she was furious, and she sank their village into the pitch as punishment. To this day, things that fell into the pitch long ago will resurface, including bits of pottery that they said came from the village. So this is the story that Becky was working with, and hence the use of the feathers. I thought it was an excellent idea at the time, and I loved the costumes. She even mentioned that she had some friends building king and queen pieces. Whoever designed the band costumes did a great job. I could just see the masquerades flitting about like a flock of hummingbirds as they crossed the stage. And though she said that the band was small, they were going to make an impact. I think I'd already made up my mind to get this job from the moment Samson told me about it. And when Becky made the offer, I did not hesitate. Now, you all remember my mother's warning about darling Samson? Well, a few months after we started dating, I got bored of the pixie cut and began growing my hair out again. I had never planned on keeping this look. Hell, I've been through at least 5 different cuts in the past 3 months, and I was ready to try out some of the longer natural hairstyles. This is when Bay suddenly starts having a problem with my hair. He never said anything outright, no, but ladies, you know how the men do it. Oh, time for a cut, babe, getting kind of wild. And you're keeping your hair like that? What do your customers have to say about it? And I have a friend who does hair. She sometimes gives me a trim. She could do yours for a discount if I ask. I think I could almost hear that one joke from high school. Black like tar, hair hard like wire, but still yelling about how he did not want no late for school children behind any girl that rejected him or was too dark for his taste. I heard he married some Indian girl some years ago, and they had to go to the registrar's office because her family did not want her to marry him. Their first child, a girl, took after him so much you could never know her mother is of East Indian descent. But his mention of this hairdresser friend caught my attention because we had a friend's wedding in a few days and I wanted to try a twist out. I would have done it myself, but it took me 3 tries to realize that I could not get the twist as neatly as I wanted. Worse, my regular hairdresser was on maternity leave, so desperate times. And that was the biggest mistake of them all. From the moment I met his home hairdresser friend, I knew that they had been more than just friends in the past. Home girl was very professional and sweet, but there was way more touching and low voices and lingering glances than you would expect from someone he had only ever been friends with. I should have gotten the hell out of there from the moment I noticed, but again, desperate. Besides, her shop was cute. She had decorated like one of those French bistros with the striped pink and chocolate walls, Tiffany blue cushions and white cupboards and cabinets and vases of real fresh flowers everywhere. She even had pet birds that she kept in another room of the shop, and you could hear them singing through the day. I don't know how the neighbors dealt with that, but the place was clean and she didn't show me any kind of bad face, so I let her do my hair. I can't wait to read your thoughts on my life choices in the comments. The twist out came out fine. She trimmed a few split ends, or so she claimed. I never noticed any, and put some spray on color, and boom, I was ready to go. I think I got the most compliments on my hair that I ever had, including back when it was straight. When I pointed this out to Samson, he even had to admit my natural hair looked great. And then 2 days later, the headache started. Now, I don't usually get headaches. I have a cousin and a coworker who get migraines and they can be out for days. This was not a migraine. The pain was close to the scalp and irregular. A few painkillers took care of the problem, and I told myself that it was stress from the work on the costumes. Becky had contracted 40 costumes from me. After I made 2 as a sample, and I spent more than a week cutting, sewing, and hot gluing these costumes from sunrise to sunset. My fingers hurt too. My arms stung from the hot glue burns for days, and my back and my neck. So I didn't think of anything of the headaches. Samson went offshore for work, but he called me every day in the morning and in the evening to see how I was progressing and if I needed to take a break, and assured me that I did not have to worry because, friend or no, he would tell Becky to shove it if she tried to overwork me. I remember thinking at the time that I did not know what I had done to get such an amazing partner, but I was glad to have him. I could even picture us married 30 years in the future and still working together like this. And that was when the first feather grew out. The first thing I thought of was that the feather had got stuck in my hair by accident. Because what else was I supposed to think? I had fallen asleep at my desk the night before and woke up with beads and feathers pressed to my face and arms and falling free of my clothes. So this had to be an accident. Maybe I passed my hand through my hair while I was gluing the feathers in. I was not even that alarmed either because Google had all these methods for getting glue out of hair without having to shave it off. I cut my hair low when I did the big chop, but I was not ready to rock the ball. When I went into the bathroom to get a better look at the problem, well, you could see the same thing I did. To be honest, I didn't freak out as much as you would expect. Okay, so there was a feather growing out of my scalp, but I think somewhere deep down, I still thought it was glue. I tried to pull it out, but it hurt like a bitch, so I decided to try one of the methods I found online. That didn't work either. Still, probably glue. In a few days, my hair would start growing and push the feather out. I could even camouflage it if I styled my hair right. 2 days later, the feather was not only bigger, but there was a second one. I think I called my mother first, but she did not answer. Most of my friends were at work already, and I wasn't sure how to begin to explain what was happening. So I called Samson. And do you know what the first thing Samson said was? He sucked his teeth and went, "Oh, damn it, this girl." You guys, I think my blood went cold. My heart must have literally stopped for a second because my whole body just locked up. This man who I thought was so perfect, who had introduced to all my family and friends, who had begun imagining a life with, had kept a big dark secret for months. If the ground could have opened and swallowed me up right then, I would have gone willingly. Instead, I took a few deep breaths, trying not to hyperventilate, and asked him, "Which one?" I wish I had recorded the call so you could see the expression in his face when I asked that, but I wasn't thinking about that in the moment. My bold, beautiful boyfriend, my Samson, suddenly couldn't look me in the eyes, and his voice was merely a whisper when he said, "Homegirl." I don't think I was ever so angry in my life as I was when he said her name, and most of that was at myself. He and Homegirl had been in a relationship, and that was reason enough not to let her put her hands in my hair. I never really paid attention to any superstitions about who should and should not touch your hair, and when you cut it, should cut it. All of that was just old talk, especially the one about burning your hair after it was cut instead of throwing it out, where the birds could get it to build their nests. But that was only supposed to give you migraines, not grow feathers. So I had to ask him, "What is this then? Some kind of obia?" I believed in obia even less than superstitions. He still would not look me in the eyes when he told me, "It is work." If I wasn't cold before, I think I was frozen solid when he said that. I asked him what it is and what happens. Guys, the backstory for this is insane. Apparently, Samson met Homegirl some years ago when he was still a player. He actually said player. I died a little inside. They met at a fete and she was all over it. He just wanted somebody to have fun with, and so they kept meeting. Then Samson met some other chick and left Homegirl. Homegirl was not happy about this and attacked the new girl. Samson said that he broke up the fight and thought that would be the end of it, but then new girl broke up with him by text and he never saw her again. It took 3 girlfriends up and disappearing for him to get suspicious. And this is after the police got involved for the last one. From one of his last girlfriend's friends, he heard that she had gone to visit Homegirl to get her hair done for a party before she went missing. He goes to confront Homegirl, and though she never said anything outright, he searched the shop and found personal effects and clothing and her new pet birds. When I tell you that I could have killed that motherfucker if we was having this conversation face to face instead of over FaceTime. I asked the 2 most obvious questions. 1, why didn't he call the police when he found his missing girlfriend's stuff in her place? And 2, why did he fucking take me to her fucking shop? Samson got quiet and I realized that this was actually our first and last fight. I had every right to be angry there, so I waited until he got over himself and started talking. The reason he did not go to the police was because Homegirl threatened to do to him what she did to the other girls, and because the other girls weren't dead. I asked him how he was so sure. Were the other girls just lounging around Homegirl's shop buck naked? He said no, she turned them into birds. Yes, birds. And I was growing fucking feathers. Okay, so why did he take me to her shop? Well, according to Samson, he had had other girlfriends in addition to the 3 who were turned into birds, and he realized that she had only gone after the light-skinned ones with soft hair. He thought that she would not do anything to me because, and I quote, "She did not mind girls with hair as hard as hers." Guys, I cussed him out. I cussed him, his mother, his father, his grandparents, his dog, his friends, and his neighbors. What I didn't tell him, I forgot. Yes, it was foolish of me to let that girl touch my hair in the first place, especially after everything I had put into growing my hair out. But he led me to her like a sacrificial lamb, and he stood there wherever he was on the rig and let me cuss him. When I finished, he said, "Listen, I will call her and see what I can do about getting this fixed. Don't worry about it. You have costumes to make." I don't know what prompted him to say that. Guilt maybe, but it got me thinking. It seemed absurd, but I had the costumes all spread out in my sewing room and feathers growing out of my head. So I asked, "And where does Becky get the feathers for her costumes anyway?" Samson just said, don't worry about it. Don't do anything. Just finish the costumes. If I was cold before, if I was frozen before, I was glacial ice now. I don't know how I managed to smile at that asshole and calmly end the call, even promising that I would call him later. But as soon as I hung up, I dumped my phone, took up my bag, and left the house. By the time Samson got back, I was probably going to have a head full of feathers, if not a beak and wings. I was not going to wait around to start chirping. Homegirl was in her shop when I got there, with a long line of customers. I'm very proud to say that I was still calm when I walked in there and said, do you do walk-ins? I have a problem with some new growth, split ends. Homegirl didn't look surprised or nothing, just told me to take a seat. One of her clients even offered a home recipe to take care of it as I settled for the longest wait of my life. I hadn't brought my phone. One of my ex-boyfriends had found a way to track me through it, and I did not trust Samson not to do the same and call Homegirl. Maybe I should have brought the phone anyway because I was bored out of my mind. And then on a break between clients, Homegirl came over with her own cell and said, he wants to talk to you. When I answered, it was like I was talking to a completely different person. He demanded to know what I was doing at the shop, if I was making a scene or I'd call the police. I refused to confirm or deny anything, and that's when he started with the threats. He warned me against making any trouble or I'd be deader than the birds in a KFC box. I hung up on his ass. He called back and started calling me all sorts of names and even said, quote, all you stupid hard-head girls is the same thing. You really think I could have anything with you? I don't want no late for school children. I can't take you to no company events and let these white people see me with this kind. I hung up again and he did not call back. I'm not gonna lie, that hurt. I had never had anyone speak to me that way in my life, not even indirectly. So to hear it from someone I was falling in love with was devastating. I had goddamn feathers growing out of my head because of him. And here he was making a mockery of our relationship. I had to step out of the shop and take a walk. When I went back to the shop, Homegirl had finished with her last client and let me into the back room. I hadn't noticed before that there were 5 birds instead of 3. They started chirping and squawking when I walked in, but stopped as soon as Homegirl followed. Also, at some point while I was out, Becky had arrived. Just to be sure, I asked Homegirl, are any of these real birds? Homegirl said no, and that wasn't even all the birds. She had some more in her house. I asked her how she turned the girls into birds. She showed me the setup, pure obia. Strands of the girls' hair, feathers from the birds she wanted to turn them into, cutting from a funerary wreath, among other things. I had heard of these things from my mother and aunts talking in whispers. My mother had always mocked them the same way I had the superstitions. And here I was in a room with Homegirl, Becky, and 5 girls she had turned into birds. I asked Becky, so what is your role in all this? Becky had met Homegirl and Samson at the same party. She had never dated Samson, but she had been talking for years about creating her own band. As the number of birds grew, Homegirl realized that their molting left her with many bags of feathers. It was Samson who taught that instead of throwing the feathers away, they could use them to make costumes. The feathers were pretty and they grew back, so Homegirl thought, why not? These bitches, including Samson, had me gluing these feathers onto costumes, none the wiser for weeks. It was Becky who then started with, it's just too bad that you came in now. The first batch of costumes you made are perfect. I had to save them for my friends. Do you know how hard it would be to find somebody to replace you? I hadn't gone in there with a plan, but as soon as she said that, one came to me. I asked, can you undo this? The same way you hairdressers talk is the same way us seamstresses do. I know you cannot find anybody as good as me on short notice. You want to finish your costumes and make your money on time? I need more time to make them. There was a chorus of betrayed chirps that Homegirl silenced with a look. Becky didn't look convinced by my appeal, and neither did Homegirl. So I said, no one would ever believe me if I tried to take this to the police. I don't even need you to pay me. I will take you stopping this as payment and go on about my life. And after today, Samson and I are done. I will tell my family his work got in the way and we could not find a way around it. I had thrown in the part about Samson in desperation, not even sure that they would take the bait. They surprised me by agreeing. I would finish the costumes and they would undo the change. I pointed out that I had no guarantee that they were going to do as they promised. They told me that I had to trust them. Obviously, I would have to be a complete idiot to do that after everything. So I told them that I'd recorded a call where Samson had stupidly confessed to their role in everything, and I was going to send it directly to the police commissioner, with some edits, of course, so that he would know that Homegirl killed the girls. Homegirl said that she did not kill anyone and that I could not prove it and that no one would believe me. I told her that maybe she looked like Becky, no one would believe me. But instead, she and Samson were both going to jail. If she was lucky, they would think she was an accomplice. But did she really want to be known as Trinidad's first serial killer? Becky was still not convinced, but I know I had homegirl, especially when I said, you know, nobody don't care about no hard head girls, and Samson will leave us in the dust. Well, her homegirl went to her cabinet where she had the things set up like bouquets and pulled out one with my 4C hair as the binding. Simple as that, she took a pair of scissors and snip, snip, the bundle fell apart and the feathers fell out of my hair. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, but only for a few seconds, because then Becky was coming at me with, but we need insurance. There was no way I was letting her get her hands on my hair again. I charged homegirl, knocking her into the cabinet and throwing out all the bundles she had made with the other girls' hair. The birds started screeching and flapping about in their cages. Becky froze and homegirl threw me off, but I snatched up as many as the bundles as I could and ripped two open. Two of the bird cages burst apart as the women inside them grew back into human sizes, though still covered in feathers. They threw themselves at Becky, still screaming, and I scrambled out of the way. I burst open another two bundles and two more women tackled homegirl as she went for the door. The last woman, tall and model slim, stepped out of the ruins of her cage and said to me, "You should probably get out of here if you don't want to be a witness." I got out of there so fast, there was probably a trail of fire behind me. And that's what happened to me this week. My ex-boyfriend turned out to be part of a conspiracy with his crazy ex and their friend to make a profit off the feathers that grew from the heads of his hapless, late-for-school girlfriends. I know it sounds crazy, but this was too wild to keep to myself. In other news, my hair is fine now and still feather-free. Bantu knots are the cutest. I'm thinking about dyeing my hair gold next, maybe. Image 003, selfie of smiling Black woman in reflective rose gold, cat eye sunglasses, and dark brown lipstick, flashing a peace sign at the camera, hair in Bantu knots, a red and black bead bracelet on her wrist. Posted 2 hours ago. 1,130 comments, 2,252 shares. And the end.
Thank you, Shari. That was really a fun story. I enjoyed it a lot.
I'm glad you did.
It is our custom to just pause a moment between stories just to reflect, let the work resonate a little bit. So we're going to do that. We have a long 5 count. And here we go with the second part of the program. We're very happy to have Elad Haber back. He's a Story Hour repeat offender. He was here last March, I believe March 31st. And we're delighted to have him here again. Elad is a husband, father to an adorable little girl, an IT guy by day, fiction writer by night. And I'll tell you from personal experience, there's a lot of that going around. He published 10 stories in 2021, including appearances at Per Happened Mag, The Daily Drunk, Literally Stories, Sledgehammer Lit, and the Nice End Podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at Music in My Car, or on his website, eladhaber.wordpress.com. So Elad, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Thanks for having me. I'm going to be reading my story, Time Keep, which was published recently in the first issue of the new BSFA publication, Vision 1. There is a tiny town at the tip of time. Think of time as a pyramid. At the bottom are the ancient eras of dinosaurs, massive oceans, and century-long winters. As the pyramid narrows, the eras are shorter and busier with life. And balanced at the top is a town full of tiny people. Though the town has no official designation, you may call it Time Keep. The keep's mayor, a bulbous man, well coiffed and dressed primarily in navy blue, is named Mr. Sturgis. Eternally a bachelor, he lives in the topmost floor of City Hall. Every morning he drinks his tea and stares out the circular window to the town square and the clock tower that serves as the replacement sun. The face of the clock is shaped like a pyramid. The past few decades have been very busy in the town. Once every generation, the pyramid is flipped and time resets itself. Floods and massive storms blanket the planet called Earth, which is a single purview of the keep. The clock is rewound, and time starts anew. Time moves differently in the keep, so one generation up here accounts for thousands and millions of years below. The mayor rises from his chair and picks up his pocket watch. It is a gold-plated disc with the names of all the previous mayors etched into it. His father's name is the last in the list, and then his grandfather, and so on through his ancestry. Sturgis has no children. When his time in office is up, the townsfolk will hold their first election in centuries, or so they think. He descends the spiral staircase to the third floor of City Hall, where his assistant hands him a typewritten schedule for the day. Her name is Mrs. Point, a bookish, bespectacled woman in a beige dress. The mayor peruses the schedule. It has the usual meetings with management. It has an hour-long block of time in gray with no label or description. Sturgis smiles at Mrs. Point, folds the paper schedule neatly into his pocket, and proceeds downstairs. The rest of the morning is dull, as usual. Sturgis half listens to petitioners with minor grievances and cabinet members with their endless agendas. His mind wanders to the gray area of his schedule. He stands up and checks his pocket watch. "I need to go," he announces, "or I'll be late." There is some protest, but it is half-hearted. Mrs. Point is waiting for him at the large wooden door downstairs. Sturgis puts on his coat, a slightly darker shade of a signature blue, his bowler hat, and grips his favorite walking stick. He thanks her, then steps out into the morning. The keep has no sun or moon or day or night, yet the town was built to mirror the earth below, so it has morning time and nighttime, and the sky lightens and darkens through some trickery. He's never been quite sure of the specifics, except that it works. He steps onto the cobblestone streets of the town square. He stops at a few of the open-air carts. Businessmen and women selling fruit and other perishables, and chats with them while they offer him gratis goods. Every passerby nods at him. The town folk are, for the most part, hardworking stalwarts of the way things have always been. They don't question their work deep in the bowels of the town with the large gears and the heavy machinery of time. But there are others who spend hours sitting at the edges, gazing below to follow the brief lives of the earth people. It takes him a long while to wind his way out of the square. He enters a deserted alley and then surveys the street. When he's satisfied that he's out of view, he ducks into a vestibule and to a small door, half concealed behind a garbage bin. He knocks 3 times. A small, dirty man opens the door. The superintendent of the building is a short and fat fellow. They always are. He leads the mayor without a word through his darkened apartment into a dingy elevator. He's already excited. This is the part he loves the most, the clandestine maneuvers, the danger of being caught, exposed. There's a noise from down the hall. He freezes, as if that would make him invisible. When the noise dies down, he continues to the farthest door down the hall and knocks once. The dark-haired woman who opens the door is naked. She's been waiting. He grabs her waist as he shoves the door closed behind him, much louder than he should have. He feels that danger reverberate through his chest and down to his hard genitals. His breath is already coming out short and tight. He pulls the woman whose name he can never remember, Linda Beverly, to a nearby couch and unzips his pants. It's quick, but satisfying. Below the streets and shops of the town are the gears. There are no days off, no vacations. Time never stops. One of the most seasoned veterans of the gears is a slender and tall man named Mr. Benjamin Benedict. In the cavern that marks the entrance, tired workers, their clothes and skin caked in soot, nap between shifts on the muddy ground. In the rafters above the entrance are the latest examples made by management. The shapes barely resemble that of bodies. They were hung and starved to death. Benedict tries not to look up at the hanging forms. He follows the foul necks of people as they move closer together into the tight halls and dark passageways of the gears. Wood planks cover the rock below. Steam shoots out from crocks in the wall and crevasses in the ground. Lanterns hang from the ceilings and sway with the occasional wind. Men shout to be heard over the clatter. He can start to hear the great force of the gears while still in the elevator. He pulls 2 bright orange plugs out of his pocket and shoves them into his ears, making sure they are as far in as possible. The elevator continues its slow descent. The glow of the gold gears replaces the darkness of the topmost levels. Finally, the elevator stops and Benedict steps onto the metal passageways. He's worked here on gold level for the past decade in a managerial position. Much of his day-to-day work involves scheduling shifts, but his passion is in the measurements and calculations of time. He's not considered management. Those people don't work in the gears. They work in comfortable offices above ground with their shades drawn. Ben files reports to them once a week, though he doubts they are ever read. He begins his usual walk around the various hanging platforms above the gears when rough hands grab him by the shirt and shove him into shadow. Hey, he shouts. A hand grips his mouth to shut him up. He spins around to face his attacker, only to see his brother, Charles. No time to explain, Charles shouts into his ear. He grabs Ben's arm and leads him down the hall and to a door he's never been in before. Charlie ushers him into the dark room and shuts the door. The ever-present sound of the gears is muffled back here so they can talk without shouting. What is going on? Ben demands. Charlie's breathing heavy as if he's been running. They used to be mistaken for twins. He's shorter than Ben, but has the same lanky build and hair color. Ben keeps his sandy brown hair tightly cropped. Charlie wears it long and loose. Ben never married. Charlie has a wife and 2 sons. Charlie rummages around the darkness for a moment. A lantern clicks to life and Charlie holds it up, illuminating the room. In the center of the small room, a rotund man is strapped to a chair. His arms and legs are tied with silver tape and his head is obscured by a hood, loose enough so that he can breathe. Ben recognizes the mayor's distinctive form. Aghast, he looks at his brother. I screwed up, Charlie admits. The hood is made of a dry, stinging material that keeps getting stuck in the mayor's mouth. He's tried to cough it out, but that's only made it worse. Sturgis can hear men whispering in the room. He knows they're in their gears in one of the deep levels. He can hear the constant churning and feel the reverberations in his chest. Everything happened so fast after his brief but exciting liaison. He descended the elevator, still a bit out of breath. The basement apartment was darker than he remembered, but he still walked in like a fool. The men, or maybe it was just one, came at him from behind with a club or a hammer. He hit the ground hard and blacked out. When he came to, he was being dragged through the gears. He knows he has to try something. Despite the woolly texture filling his mouth, he tries to speak. Hello, friends, he says from inside the hood. If I may say something? A pause in the whispering. Sturgis takes this as a good sign and speaks up. Things have obviously gotten out of control here. Let's talk face to face. I promise not to rush to judgment or anger. We can make a deal, right? Sturgis smiles underneath the hood, hoping his conciliatory mood would be infectious. There is silence for a moment and then the sound of a door closing. Above, news of the mayor's disappearance has trickled out to the population. Citizens have gathered in the town square. Normally, this is the time the square empties out. All the carts are wheeled aside and only young lovers and old couples stroll hand in hand, welcoming the evening. Tonight, there's a bevy of activity in City Hall. People rush in and out, and whenever the wooden door opens, everyone tries to get a glimpse of what's going on inside. The black suits of management appear from one of the nearby buildings and stand like a lone black cloud away from the mass of people. They don't enter City Hall. They don't usually interfere with intertown politics or goings on. Their focus is on time. Still, the disappearance has obviously slowed work in the gears, otherwise they wouldn't have bothered to show up. As the sky darkens, more people fill the square. Some of the clever cart owners start selling food and drink. There's an almost party-like atmosphere. Finally, after the streetlights have been lit and the children escorted home, the large wooden door of City Hall opens. The constable, a stern, barrel-chested man with a thick mustache that shudders when he speaks, emerges. The murmuring of the townsfolk quiets. The constable balls his fist and proclaims, "We will hunt down whoever is responsible for this kidnapping." His voice rises, "and we will make them pay." Ben and Charlie stand in a conspiratorial huddle outside the room. Charlie has his hands up in a pleading gesture. "Ben, he was fucking my wife. I had to do something." Ben shakes his head. "They'll hang you for this." He turns to walk away. "I'm not getting involved." "Wait, slow down." Charlie grabs his brother's shoulder. "Maybe there's a way we can use this to our advantage. I know it was stupid and they made a rash decision, but maybe we can use this for the cause. We can keep your voice down." Charlie tries to keep his voice to a whisper, just above the ever-present sound of the gears. "Ben, we've been waiting for something like this." "No." Ben is rarely angry. "We can't be rash or quick to action, not this time." Charlie grits his teeth. The heavy sound of multiple footprints comes down from the hall. The brothers share a frightened look. This time it's Ben who grabs his brother by the shoulder and whispers in his ears, "Go," he commands. "Hide, I'll hold them off." He speaks fast, his mind racing. "When they're gone, go to my office. Under my desk is a hidden panel. You'll find a plan in there. Now go." With all his might, Ben shoves Charlie into the shadows. The constablemen rush into the hall and grab Ben before he can protest. They push him up against the wall. They open the unmarked door, and when they see the bound form of the mayor, they smile. Then their smiles turn dark, and they set upon him, punching and kicking him until he goes limp. Two of the deputies carry Ben back towards the elevators, while the remaining ones untie the mayor, apologizing all the while. It's an event. Morning in the keep is usually filled with the steady march of workers' feet and the humdrum sounds of merchants setting up shop. Today, after a restless night for most of the population, the only sound is the rhythmic beating of a single tool in the town square. A man is building a small stage and raising a long post in the center of the square. The gears will be manned by a skeleton crew today. Schools will be closed. The decrees came out in the early morning hours and a long night. In the mayor's chambers in City Hall, Ben is tied to a chair in the center of the room. There are representatives from management, the constable's office, and many members of the mayor's staff swarming the room. Ben's bright eyes a mess of dried blood, and more of the red stuff leaks out of his mouth. "Look at him," shouts the mayor to the room. "He looks like a mess. You can't very well put him on display like this." The constable bows his head. "I apologize. My men got overzealous." The mayor throws his arms into the air. "Obviously, but what should we do? Perhaps a hood," offers the constable. "Let them see," says a scratchy voice. One of the representatives from management, his words, like his face, caked in shadow. "Let them see what happens when they resist." "All right," says the mayor with a mischievous grin. "Let's put on a show." Down in the gears, Charlie slinks into Ben's empty office. He keeps the lights off and rushes to the desk. He crouches down to the floor and reaches under the bottom of the desk to find some loose paper hidden in an alcove. He pulls the paper out and scrutinizes it in the thin light. The first 2 pages are all equations. Charlie has worked in the gears his whole life, but he never had the knack for it like Ben. He flips back the equation to a diagram. He recognizes the gears. He doesn't understand all of it, not even close, but enough. It'll have to be enough. Ben almost fell asleep before they slapped him awake and dragged him out of the chair. Strong arms carried him through the doors of City Hall and out into the square. The air felt good on his open wounds. Then he opened his eyes and saw the whole town assembled. There were gasps from the women when they saw his bloody face. He shrugged off the men that carried him and planted himself on his 2 feet. Slowly, he's made his way to the center of the square and the stage and the post that awaited him. Ben always felt affection for the Earth people. They were innocent, like children. He had hoped to help them in some way before his time in the world was up. He failed, but he was not going to let that failure show, especially now in front of the whole town. He held his head high as the mayor and management appeared. The mustached constable emerged from City Hall last, his face grim and determined. He held in his hand some paper. When he got close to Ben, he nodded his men and a noose appeared out of nowhere. The constable cleared his throat, looked down at his paper, and launched into a speech. Ben didn't listen. "There," shouts Charlie, "and there." He points to a series of gears. His men, or actually Ben's men, run to the various edges of the platforms hanging high over the loud crunch of the gears. Down here, loyalty is everything. There is an accident, a mistake, any type of situation that might cause an injury, these men know Benedict would be the first one there and ready to help. Now he needs their help. Now is their time. Now, he shouts at them. It starts with a rumble, and then the whole square shifts as if the ground itself is angry at them. People shout and fall to the floor. The constable stops his speech, then smiles. He looks to the mayor, who is white as snow. There is another rumble, this time stronger, and the wooden posts and the noose connected to it fall to the cobblestones. Something erupts nearby. It's huge and gold. A gear lodges itself into the ground like a sculpture, and another one. They spit out the underground in joyful rebellion. The townsfolk scatter. Buildings begin to crumble and collapse. Ben stands up. At some point in the confusion, Sturgis had fallen to the ground. Ben extends a hand and helps him stand up. The mayor is staring at the clock tower above the square. Ben follows his gaze and it lands on the pyramid-shaped clock. The pyramid is spinning wildly as if reality itself was unmoored. The mayor has tears in his eyes. "Well, what happens now?" he stammers to time. "I don't know," Ben says with a smile, and then he shrugs, and he disappears into the smoke and the fire and the confusion. Maybe now they'll have a chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Elad. That was also a really good story. Oh, man. Another story hour. Two great authors, two great stories. Thanks for joining, everybody, for another week. Next week, please come back. We have Danya Coles, Gordon B. White. And until then, well, before we go, I'd like to thank my fabulous co-host, Laura Blackwell. And until next week, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll see you real soon. Good night, folks.
Thank you so much.
Uh,